Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with something of a musical rescue operation, and about time, too. It's this lovely recording, really marvelous recording, one of only two, I believe, although there's more on YouTube, but like on disc, of Alessandro Striggio's Mass in 40 parts. Woo! It's Missa, Ecco, Beato, Giorno, which is based on a motet, also in 40 parts or so, Ecco Beatam Lucem, and which inspired Thomas Tallis's 40-part motet, Spen in Alium, which we all know by heart, and which is also on this disc. So, I mean, yeah, you got all that in your head? Okay. So who are the performers? The performers are I Fagiolini under Robert Hollingworth. And this disc was originally released on Decca back in 2011, I believe. And it was like sort of a big deal back then because Striggio's Mass, which was known because it had been described, was thought lost. But it was rediscovered sometime around 2007 or so, hanging out in the Paris Library and reconstructed for these performances. It was also recorded by Hervé Niquet and Le Concert Spirituel on the Glossa label, actually. But not only is this a 40-part Mass, but it's a 40-part Mass that expands in the last Agnus Dei to 60 parts, which is pretty extraordinary. 60 real parts. I mean, that's a lot of parts. And what's interesting about these performances is that they include voices and instruments. They are not purely a cappella or vocal-only performances. Each choir is accompanied by a certain color, a timbral color, with the instruments divided up in various ways. And that is a really smart thing to do to create variety, especially in music like this, because let's face it, let's talk Tallis here. You got 40 parts or 60 parts, and you've got a bunch of choirs. They're all what are there? There's like 10 4-part choirs or 5 8-part choirs, I think, actually, in this thing. The Tallis is actually 4 10-part choirs that are arranged to look like 5 8-part choirs. I mean, it's complicated, but there's lots of people, and you've got lots of people, and they're all, there are no chords that have 60 notes, right? You're dealing with the harmony. The basic harmony for these things is really pretty simple and straightforward. And what often happens in parts of the Mass is that you've got, in the big moments, like the Hosanna, and the Sanctus and whatnot, is that you've got some basic harmonies being held by most people, and then some sort of more elaborate or ornate intertwining from one of the other choirs or the upper parts. But the actual harmonic motion is rather slow, and the harmonies are very solidly articulated by the various choral forces. And so having instruments with different timbres accomplishes a couple very, very important goals. First, it actually helps you differentiate who's doing what. It makes the contrapuntal lines clearer, and it also creates a lot more timbral interest when you're changing harmony. I mean, it's a very smart thing to do, and it has historical precedent. God forbid they should do it just because it makes sense to do it. They should do it. No. We have historical precedent that must be observed. But no, it's smart. It's smart precedent. It really is. So in addition to all this mega stuff, we get a bunch of madrigals by Striggio, which are quite lovely, including one he wrote for Queen Elizabeth. Actually, I think it's this last one, Caro dolce ben mio, or one of those things, or Doni gratio ed d'amor, or who knows. The point is that he was in England, and he was apparently graciously received by Her Majesty. And that's one of the reasons we can surmise that when Tallis wrote Spen in Alium, he was inspired by Striggio, because he was doubtless around in the 1560s and 70s and 80s and 90s, or whenever Striggio hung out in England with the Queen, and Tallis was there. So we know that. And that's what creates the link between the two works. Now, there's also, let's see, the actual plain chant Spen in Alium, which has nothing whatsoever to do with the Tallis, but if you're curious about the plain chant version, it's on here. And then we've got Vincenzo Galilei's Contrapunto Secondo for providing a little bit of extra variety between the Mass and the secular madrigals. And they're all very, very beautifully done. They really are. They're intelligently done with a real sense of occasion. I mean, the big multi-choral moments really jump out of the speakers. Everything has been nicely remastered for this reissue. I am so happy that they salvaged this from Decca. I mean, the Decca had a DVD, and the DVD had a whole thing about discovering the Mass and putting it together and whatnot. It's a pity to lose it, I guess. But, I mean, I have it sitting down there, I think, in the overflow room. But in any case, this is important. It's important. It should never have been out of print in the first place. I'm so happy it's back. And if you like Thomas Tallis, I mean, you'll have an extra Spen in Alium, but probably not one with instruments attached to it. And it's really a wonderful, wonderful disc to enhance your exploration and enjoyment of Renaissance polyphony, which is, of course, one of the glories of Western music. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.